The three most common door closer configurations are regular or standard arm, parallel arm, and top jamb mounted. Designs and configurations can vary quite a bit from manufacturer to manufacturer. Here we have a Stanley Commercial Hardware QDC 100 series door closer. This door can be opened to about a 100-degree position. Now right now there's a bit of an obstruction behind the door, so we can't really open it all the way up, but it's pretty close to about 100 degrees. We have to take that into account when we install the door closer and when we're templating the door closer for the door swing. When you look at instructions from most manufacturers, you're going to see that it says if the door can open to 90 degrees, use a template that opens to 90 degrees. If it opens up to 120 degrees, template it for 120 or even 180. So what does that mean? Well, it means if the door closer is moved closer to the hinge, we'll have more door rotation. It can actually move much further. If we mount it further towards the latch edge of the door, it can't rotate as far because it'll want to have door closer arm. So it's important to follow the instructions for how wide the door can actually open, and measure from the door gap on the hinge side to your first screw holes according to the diagrams in the instructions or paper template that you would tape to the door. Not following the instructions and locating the door closer in a position other than the recommended location will cause malfunctions. You won't have your correct latch speed, possibly your back check won't work, it might come on too soon or too late. It can also shorten the life of your door closer. The spacing from the screws in the body to the door closer arm is also very critical. So again, follow the installation instructions for whatever door closer you're installing. They will vary by brand and by model. This door closer has been installed with a parallel arm bracket on the soffit of the door frame, allowing it to be mounted on the push side of the door so it can swing outward and keep the door closer on the interior of the space. We're going to get this door closer adjusted and working correctly, and we're going to start with the spring tension. On the door closer body, you'll see an adjustment screw that either increases or decreases the spring tension, making the door easier or harder to open and close harder or close lighter. It's pretty important that we get this to the correct spring tension. If it's too heavy, we might be out of compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and if it's too light, it might not close the door correctly. Typically, the ADA is looking for about 5 pounds of spring force or less to close the door. If it's a stairwell door or fire-rated door, or even exterior doors, we can get away with a little more spring force. On fire-label doors, up to 15 pounds of force, which is pretty heavy. If it's an exterior door, it's a bit of a gray area. You might want to check with your authority having jurisdiction. In this case, though, we have an Allen wrench or hex-type key that will allow us to turn it clockwise to increase tension or decrease by going counterclockwise. We'll also use a door force gauge to figure out how much force we actually have once we have it adjusted correctly. On the front side of the door closer body, we have various valves we can use to adjust the speed. Over on the left here we have the latch speed, so that would be the speed on the last few inches or degrees of closing. The sweep speed, which is from full open as much as 180 degrees down to where the latch speed picks up. And delayed action is standard on Stanley Commercial Hardware, an option on most closers. It's a third speed valve which, when the door gets beyond about 70 or 75 degrees and the opening swing, it can be made to close very slowly until it gets back down to that 70 or 75 degree area. It's for wheelchair access primarily, to make it easier for them to get into a door from the pull side. Back check is like an automatic brake and slows the door down on its opening swing, so that if the wind catches it, it won't do much damage to the door or frame, and it could also be used to prevent it from hitting something behind the door, such as a wall or a planter or whatever might be in its way. So let's go take a look at the door. To test how much force it takes to open the door, we're going to use a door force gauge. The door force gauge is applied to the lock hardware or door right about where you normally push your hand against the door to open it. And as we press against the door, the O-ring will slide up the scale, indicating how much force it took to open the door. Let me reset that, and we'll apply it right about where our hand would typically go on this exit device to open the door. I'm going to slowly push against the exit device and door until I get back about right about 70 degrees or so, where back check typically comes in. And I'll check the gauge here and see how much force it took to open the door. I want to make sure I'm on the pound scale here, and it was just sitting right over the 5-pound mark before I slid it down, so we're good. We're just at about 5 pounds of force, which keeps us legal with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, our sweep speed was a little bit fast, and our latch speed was a little bit slow, so let's go ahead and take care of that. So we're going to come over to the valves, and we're going to speed up the latch speed by turning it just a little bit counterclockwise, and the sweep speed slow down by turning it clockwise. And we'll try it again, see how it worked. Not bad. Closing speed should be about 5 to 7 seconds from about 90 degrees to fully shut. At that speed, you really couldn't do any damage to anybody. The door wouldn't hurt anybody, especially if it's closing smoothly like this one is. Okay, so let's talk about back check. Back check is that automatic brake that slows it on the opening swing. If it's too abrupt, it can be very dangerous. If it's not on hard enough or strong enough, the door won't slow down and it might hit the wall behind it. So let's take a look at this one. It's set too abruptly right now. Okay, so it didn't get very far open here. So if I push it hard, you'll see it's kind of stuck here and not wanting to work. So let's go ahead and let it close. And we'll go ahead and we'll back this back check valve off a little bit here and see how it works. So we'll back up, we'll give it a good push. Okay, that's about where it should be. So it's slowing the door down on its opening swing, but it's not super aggressive where it's going to hurt somebody. Any lighter than that would hit the door, the wall that's right behind it. There's a wall right at about a 90 degree or 100 degree position behind it. Now this door closer is a Stanley D4550, and the valves are in different locations than the previous door closer, but they still work the same way. So we have our sweep and our latch and our back check. So if you aren't sure what a valve does, just tighten it all the way down and see how the door reacts. If it doesn't close and it's wide open, well, that would be your sweep speed. If it won't close on the end of its swing, well, that would be your latch speed. If you can't push it open all the way, that would be your back check. Keep in mind you should never pull a valve out past the door closer body. So if you look at this one here, we can see that this screw is in a little bit. So you should never bring it out past flush. Otherwise you could have oil leakage or hydraulic fluid leakage out of the door closer, which would not be a good thing. One final note. Make sure you read the installation instructions before installing or adjusting any kind of door hardware. Understanding how the manufacturer intends the hardware to be installed will make it much easier to install and adjust.